Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to give you a brief introduction to a new spin-out company from the University of Kentucky, co-founded by myself and Lyndon Waskin, called MUDRx. MUDRx is addressing the problem that there is no existing pharmacotherapy to treat methamphetamine use disorder. This is a disease that affects about 2 million methamphetamine users in the United States, about 35 million methamphetamine users worldwide. And the long-term uncontrolled use of methamphetamine that's associated with methamphetamine use disorder, or MUD, leads to multi-system organ damage over time in methamphetamine users, and a connection to being unable to legally source the drug of use. Both of these lead to extreme damage to not only the individual, but their family, their social circles, their entire community. And the problem of death due to methamphetamine use disorder has been going up in the United States, much like it has with any other use disorders. So we think about market in the United States. As I said, there are about 2 million regular methamphetamine users who have this diagnosis. Think about that in this block. About 500,000 current methamphetamine users with MUD seek treatment every year. So we would think about that as the maximum obtainable market. If we were to price that based on opioid use disorder drugs as currently reimbursed at Medicaid pricing, this is about a $5 billion a year unaccessed market, using a paradigm for delivery to market that exists already. Thinking about our solution, so we propose to produce the first FDA-approved medicine to treat methamphetamine use disorder. This is a novel small molecule. We have an issued composition of matter patent with follow-on in place. We are projecting once daily dosing in patients, and this has a minimum of 18 months of usage based on treatment paradigms that are successful for other use disorders, and potentially would be used for life by a MUD patient as maintenance therapy to prevent relapse. Very crucially, our target and the molecule that we're bringing forward have no abuse liability. So this means, unlike the opioid use treatment, there's no need to have specialty dispensing. There's no need to have specialty subscription. This could potentially be prescribed by any physician anywhere in the US, dispensed by any pharmacy. There's no need for a particular setting or for all the stigma that can be associated with dispensing drugs as are done for the opioid use disorders. In terms of differentiation for our company, the compound MUDRx1 is targeted to VMAT2. This is the primary methamphetamine target. And what VMAT2 does is actually control sequestration of dopamine in vesicles in the synapse. Methamphetamine knocks it out and allows for generalized long-term displacement in the synapse. That's what gives you that long-term high that's experienced in methamphetamine use. And that triggers abuse. Our small molecule blocks this, and what it effectively does is restore dopamine signaling to the normal homeostatic balance rather than over-antagonizing it. So it's a pharmacological antagonist that shows maximal efficacy. There's not a lot of competition present. People have looked a little bit at opioid use disorder treatments. They have poor efficacy and only work in a small subset of patients. And that's about it for competition. In terms of traction, the two key pieces of data I'll show you here. This is the gold standard rat experiment showing suppression of self-administration, and in an oral dose of 17 to 30 milligrams per kilogram, we fully prevent self-administration in the rat model. And likewise, this is a reinstatement assay which measures the potential for relapse. And at lower doses, we completely extinguish methamphetamine use. Once the animal has stopped, they won't restart. So this really gives the key pharmacological proof of concept to move forward. This is a 20-year effort with existing IP. We are both experienced in the field and at moving drugs into the clinic. And what we're trying to do right now is raise enough money to go through clinical proof of concept. So in this disease, this requires a phase 2A study or further in order to get that proof of concept. That cashes out at about a $25 million total raise. If you want to know why I'm standing in front of a largely angel audience, we were actually raising against this when the market tanked, and we are now sitting and waiting for the market to recover in order to take our clinical candidate forward. This is the team. I specialize in clinical deployment of new chemical entities for orphan diseases and neglected diseases. Linda was the pharmacologist who discovered the target. This crowd down at the bottom are all people I've worked with for a decade or longer, some of whom have done more than 2 INDs with me, and we're all ready and rearing to go. So I'll stop there and be glad to take questions.
So you said that there is no risk by taking this. I mean, nobody can. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Nobody can overdose on it.
I didn't say there was no risk. I said there was no abuse liability.
Abuse. So if you could clarify that for me.
Sure. So in this field, the standard we look towards is the treatments that are used for opioid use disorders, all of which actually have addiction potential themselves. So in clinical use, they have to be used in a way that recognizes that. So for example, they're prescribed by a specialty physician. The patients are closely monitored. Sometimes the actual dispensing of the drug is done with a direct monitoring setup. Like the longest we'll usually give out is a month's supply of the lower abuse potential drugs. So while there's definitely all the usual associated risks with an early stage molecule, the abuse liability of this molecule appears to be non-existent. That's a critical differentiator in this space because it means you're actually able to dispense them effectively to a wide range of patients. So if I were to crunch the numbers on an opioid market, I would tell you there's an equivalent number of people, there's an equivalent need, there's potentially an equivalent level of reimbursement for Medicaid and private pay, but we don't action that market very effectively because there are all these restrictions on prescription, dispensation of the drug, use of the drug that get in the way. Patient adherence I can't fix for you, right? Sure.
So just wondering about the kind of the drug characteristics of your small molecule and why. So one, what is kind of your predicted dose per day right now? And then ultimately, have you ever considered injectable formats, or is there a kind of first pass metabolism effect, or those types of things?
So that's a two great questions. So in terms of the current product, we're targeting oral because there's been a very strong push from a subset of the use community and also NIH to move towards oral. There's definitely an argument to be made for parenteral. It gets back to the directly observed therapy approach, which I just briefly mentioned. So one can give that drug to a methamphetamine user in clinical setting and then know that it's on board. Although, to be truthful, there are some examples of people, for example, digging out injected forms of opioid antagonists in that kind of use. In terms of this drug itself for oral administration, we're currently projecting between a 40 and 400 milligrams daily dose. We think it's going to land around 100. That's as strong as I can get with existing PK/PD modeling. It's almost 95% orally bioavailable. We get a 4-to-1 brain to plasma ratio. So looks very good from a dose standpoint. It just needs some money to get through the clinical trials. Yes. Thank you, everybody.